Hello everyone, it's me Andreia Santos on Beyond the Cover and welcome back to my 26th episode. Yes, this is the number that's been thus far on my show. I really can't believe on myself that I was not really expected to come this far, not expected to have many listeners, not expected many things, but I'm very glad that my show has its audience, that has listeners that are interested to listen to learn more about writing, books, literature, and everything connected with that. So for today, before we start to wrap up everything we've learned the last week, welcome. For those who are just listening for the first time, and for those who will ever listen to me since the beginning, welcome again. And let's see what we're going to see what's going to happen today. We're going to continue our show about the fighting things. And I will apologize, I haven't recorded a video for what we're going to learn for this week, but that's fine. I have been busy and I'm going to try to see what I can do for next week as well and send some other videos. But before that, before we start to dive into what, pardon me, about our stuff, let's listen to some two questions that have been sent me for this week. And they are as follows. So Emily from Peterborough, I think this is how you pronounced, she asks, I am thinking about writing some children's books. I am thinking about calling the series Gigglewood Chronicles. What do you think? Well, Emily, it's a good question, but unfortunately, because I do not write children's books, I do not answer that question, to be fair. And the way I say this, because as I stated now, I don't read children's books. I am not familiar with the genre, but in the future, which I have already put my notes aside and I've done some research on that, we are going to specifically going to talk about genres in more detail. We're going to see the type of genres of the books for children. So if I knew on to answer that question, Emily, I will ask, what is the age range for your children? Is it the children very young? So let's say 0 to 2 years old, or is 5 to 10, or up? Because I say this because as far as I've seen on my notes as well, each stage or childhood will require certain style as well of writing. You can dive into topics and you're going to see which ones are. And many people are going to be surprised. I was surprising myself as well. And that's pretty much what I want to say to you, Emily. I don't know what to say more because, again, I do not read children's books. I don't know the age of your children that you're trying to write about. What I'm gonna say is just follow just follow intuition. If you think that the Gigglewood Chronicles sounds a good title, just keep with that. Just keep with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And keep that for a while. But while you're writing the story, if you think that probably this is not a good title anymore, that's okay. Because think about this. Whatever any writer writes a book, it's only a process. You are writing for children, fair, is what you want to do. Absolutely fine. But remember, even in the middle of the story, you might think, obviously it's not a good direction for my character, I'm going to change. That's okay. And it applies for titles as well. In fact, many authors probably leave the title for the end of this, or they end the book, you know. You don't need to have a certain title already for the series. This depends on kind of writer you are. For me personally, I don't write for children, but with my story I am writing thus far, I know already the title because I know the theme for my series. And I think guessing what you want to explore, I think kind of helps. And I think I will go with this. So there you are. If I think it's a good title, maybe I will say yes. I don't see the problem with that. Maybe Gigglewood might be something very interesting title. You know, maybe the children are going to laugh. Who knows? You have to explore. You're the writer. But Emily, good luck. And if you're interested, just keep waiting for the series when I'm going to touch the how to write books for children, because I'm going to definitely touch that. So you can just wait for that and keep listening to my show, or you just you can skip. That's fine as well. And then when you see, because I have already a TikTok account, which I'm going to try to be. I'm not going to say more active, but at least try to do some more videos to that for my show. So keep it up. See how it goes. And that's all, Emily. The rest, good luck. Our last question is from Hannah from Cornwall. And she asks, have you ever found a book and the movie that you like or dislike when you prefer one over the other? Ooh, this comes with favoritism. Hannah. What an intriguing, yes, yet tricky question, because what if you like both? Would you feel like the book so much, despite when you saw, let's say, the series or the movie was a bit different, but you liked it because the author never thought about it? How would you react to that? If you think about it, let's see, this question is an interesting one, also can imply this as well. Yes, many people may prefer book or movie, or the contrary. Many people watch the movies first and then come back to the book after to see the differences. I found that I do myself many times with that, with the series and stuff like that. But if I found the book and a movie that I would like or dislike when I preferred one over another, not yet. No, not yet. I do realize that nowadays, writers want to get inspired or can try to adapt, which is the adaptations. And we know ahead that adaptations sometimes can be bad, can be okay, or can be very good. Even if they change some aspects of the story of the book or cut some scenes, for example, because we all know that movies and books are different, different media of entertainment, but the way they approach story have its own structure, but they approach differently, if this makes sense. So I don't know, I haven't ever experienced that yet. But I imagine it's going to be like the other things that people have experienced in life, why they prefer nothing one another. But that's okay as well. And that will hand for today. So thank you, Emily, and thank you, Hannah, for sending me your lovely questions. Keep it up. And thank you, everybody who's going to be absolutely interested in me, listening to me as well. That's why, because we're going to continue with our last episode about flashbacks. But before that, let's listen to our first gothic metal song. And the band is called Mephisto Waltz. And the song is Dear Familiar Phantoms. Again, thank you for the YouTuber. It's Black Friday. She's been amazing. She's been quite quiet for a while, bless her, but that's okay. She has a life, she has a mom, so I understand. But according to her, they're an American band from 1985, very, very old. They are influential and important part of the goth music history. Their sound is atmospheric, sweet, sad, and sometimes experimental. So guys, enjoy Mephisto Waltz, Dear Familiar Phantom. And that was Mephisto's Dear Familiar Phantoms. I really hope you guys enjoyed the melodic and the voice also of the song. Now yes, let's return to our episode. Let's now start it. The last week we started to see the fight scenes, how the fight scenes influence our characters and vice versa. And realized that the fight scene is influence our characters psychologically, physical, or even the plot as well. It has to make sense. We cannot just throw out, a fighting scene out of the blue and expect to work, as everything works in a story. We also touched the anatomy of the action and the fighting scenes as well, what actually matters. And we saw that would depend on what you write and what you want to write about. It also, we just realized that a good fighting scene, it is much more than just a burst of action. So it can just mean physical, but it also can be, who knows? It can be somebody diplomatic that just is good of convincing other people. That can be another action, type of action. And we also know that we want to make our readers to want more of the delicious actions that we write about. And we also started to see also the pacing of the fight. And we also start to realize that all the fight scenes in the stories, depends of our genre. And not sometimes, then it depends also the plot itself. If he's going to, as I've said prior, if he's going to influence your character. So the fighting scenes are this kind of stuff that, we need to treat it really carefully as like everything in your story. So it depends what you want to do. And because of all of this, we have to study the genres, because not all genres are going to require fighting. For example, if I want a romance genre, a pure romance genre, if you think about it, there's not much fighting scenes. It is physically not, unless I gave a good example. If you are writing a dark romance and there is this mafia going on, there might have some fighting scenes. But keep in mind, you have to focus on the dark romance of the characters. That's why people are drawn to the dark romance genre. And also, it's important to know our audience. Fantasy writers know that their audience are expecting at least to have some fighting things. At least. This will depend if it's a high fantasy or if a dark fantasy as well. I also have in my book some fighting things occurring throughout the story. And that's pretty much it. Yes, your audience. And also focus also on your style and just mix things up, because you will never know what you will find. And then finally, characters have to fight differently, because yes, you're not going to expect, let's say, a fighter to know, let's say, martial arts, at least in the sense of like a monk, for example. They might know some martial arts, but not too much in depth or detail as a monk does, for example. And those kind of things we need to think about. And if you also try to think also on the high fantasies of the books as well, the fighter can use sword or shield, or even two swords, or a hammer, whatever, while a monk might just use the strength of hands or feet, and goes on. Another weapon is mostly used for monks, for example. And also we start to see that we have to give more flavor to our fighting scenes. We have to do the touch, which is pretty much the most commonly used, but not just touch. In fact, I apologize, is the visual, which is the most common thing to see what's happening. But also the touch is important. What they hear is important. The smell is important, and also the taste. Because with this, we will make a very unforgivable fighting scene. And then lastly, we just saw that we just need to revise everything, like we do with all with everything we write, because it's what writers do. We editing our stuff, and this is what we have to do. And we started to little bit last week to touch on the flashbacks and when we shouldn't use flashbacks as well, because flashbacks is useful, but as I said, don't overuse it, your flashback, for your entire book, because your reader might think, maybe this flashback should be the story of my book. And that's quite a shame. Flashback just shows some moment of the character. It depends on the scene as well. It can be emotional, can be traumatic, can be just a sweet memory of, let's say, a long friendship. Depends on the story of the characters. It's just a small moment. It's just little small moment that the story is just telling us, hey, it's time to pause a little bit, just to slow the pace a bit and just bring this back. Now, the question comes actually, does your story really need a flashback? Well, because a flashback is a scene that transports the reader to a moment in the story, it's not just a reference to something that happened in the past, but a recreation of that experience. So it can also be that. Does it necessarily to exist? Probably not sometimes. It depends what you want to do. Does has to come to exist? Probably, yeah. It's up to you at the end of the day. But now, let's see the troubles with the flashbacks. So now, the things that you have to ask, because keep in mind, you want to keep your reader engaging, for them to understand the story, what's going on with your character. Keep this in mind when you're writing a flashback. Are relevant to the story, that the reader already cares about, or doesn't happen too frequently? Well, for okay, so for this, I apologize. I think just happened something here with me. I'm gonna play the second song. It's actually very funny. This one. It's called Electric Cowboy, Elevator Operator. They are a German electronic core, metalcore, melodic metalcore, post-hardcore band formed in 2010. When I listened to the song, it was absolutely fantastic. They're very humorous, and they're just really, really funny. And everybody should just check them out. And this song actually has a story. The story for this song is about a real elevator operator. Because the band encountered a serious school dude operating one of the elevators at the House of Blues in Chicago, and were so impressed by how interesting this guy was that they decided to write a song about it. So, Elevator Operated by Electric Cowboy.
You heard about a man, the lift controller, the lever king, I told you. Hop in and let the journey begin. Straight and shiny face, letting someone for on his face. So full of praise, I just wanna get that up and down. We're moving on around, we're going up and down. We're moving on around. I wanna show you my world, where the beat goes up and down. Let me open the door. Elevator operator. Like him, I really wanna be like him. I wanna be with him. Forget about that. Hands up in the sky and we keep getting high. Imagine down in a level that you cannot deny. We're glowing light, you're shining bright. I cannot wait to get inside. Still out of sight, when we wanna go up and down. We're moving on around, we're going up and down. We're moving on around. I wanna show you my world, where the beat goes up and down. Let me open the door. Elevator operator.
And it was Electric Cowboy, Elevator Operator. I really like the title of his song because it is really so funny. And the fact that the story is just really about a real elevator operator. The guy just found it very funny. Just decided to put it in a parcel, so to speak. It's just really fun. These guys are fun. They're very humorous. And I really recommend people check them out on YouTube. Just please give them a follow. Now, yes, I will apologize for what just happened. I mean, that's prior, but I think I just got a little bit of a moment. So let's just really now trying to be here now on the show. So does the story really need a flashback? Just keep in mind it depends, because a scene. Just see your flashback as a scene that transports the reader to a moment in the story. That's what you need to remember when you're writing a flashback. And then ask, is it necessary? Is it not? Yeah, it's up to you. Flashbacks are important, but always a flashback in a story can also be a problem. And now, yes, with my mind here and focused, let's see the problem with flashbacks. Let's see. So, the flashbacks pull your reader out of the timeline they are engaged in. Because it's true, because if you think about what is a flashback, they're returning somewhere in the time in the past, but something happened. This means you want to make sure your flashbacks, now yes, this is the correct way to think, so I apologize for prior again, are relevant to the story the reader already cares about, don't happen too frequently, because as I told you, don't make sure they don't happen frequently, because again, your reader, what your reader is going to say is, why this is not the story of the book. And that's what needs to happen, and you need to remember that. And then, don't squash the pace or tension you are building in the current timeline. Because yes, these are the problems with the flashbacks, because if you think about the flashback, slows the pace of your story, because it's what it's saying to the reader is, this is an important moment on the character they are remembering or they are experiencing, and this is important. And this will slow the pace of the story. And if you think it's not important and you want your story to move on, then don't use a flashback. And again, don't use it frequently, because remember that the flashback just serves a way to set your reader it's important, and also I want you as a writer to care about the character because of this specific moment I am telling you to your reader. And with all of this, the flashbacks can be confusing if you don't nail your transactions. If it is not clear that your character is looking back in time, your reader will be lost when the character shows up out of nowhere asking for let's say, for something else, Because yes, if something is happening in the story, let's say your character is going to have a divorce. And let's say that your main character, whatever let's say genre is, they're going to remember what happened in the past. When they have a second divorce and they're having the second one, and it's going to impact them psychologically. If this happens nowhere of the story, what is nothing to do with the divorce, then your reader is going to be confused. And this is why flashbacks have their place, like anything else in the story, have their place. They have to be very, very well placed and reconsidered in the story. Because most importantly, flashbacks are not always necessary. Ta-da! A flashback is not the only interesting way to unload exposition. If anything, a flashback is the most destructive way to get your reader up to speed. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you need a good reason to use it. Like anything in any story. But because the flashback, keep this in mind when you're writing a story, because the flashback, again, I'm going to say this again because I want you guys to really see how important it is, slows the pace of your story, is because something important you want your reader to pay attention to. It's very fun when the character are facing a struggle. It's very fun when they are battling the bad guy. But then, if a flashback disrupts the main event, it can be unnecessary, it can be redundant, and then your reader is going to be lost and say, I wasted my time with all this. Now we saw the bad, the trouble or bad ways to use the flashback, if you like. And after my second Gothic song, we're going to see good reasons for including a flashback. Because yes, we started with the bad, now we can include the good reasons. My second Gothic song, I would discover when I was trying to find Gothic songs. And this one is very interesting. It's called Past Self, the group. And the music is actually written in Korean, and it's pronounced Nokeseho Kaho. I think is how you pronounce it. This is very, very weird. In translation means roasted knife. So, the Past Self is a Vegas-based dark wave shoegaze band, known for their swirling guitar tones, distinct image, and unique blend of Korean and English lyrics that the band has dubbed Ki Goth, so Ki for Korean. This song is about feeling ostracized and obscure from social norms and learning to embrace it. So I couldn't find probably good translations for this song, so we have to keep in mind it's in Korean. But maybe Koreans listening to this and they can enjoy. So, you know what, guys? Enjoy Past Self. What's your call? Roasted Night. And that it was Past Self, No Se Call, Rusty Knife. I really hope in a sense you guys enjoy the music, you know, the chorus, and if it is in Korean. I hope you just really said, yeah, I'm gonna check them out, because I think they deserve it as well. So now returning to our show, we still have some minutes left, yes, still time. So we just started to see what does the trouble for the flashbacks. And the thing is relevance in the story and for the reader to care about the character. If it is used very frequently, and of course, if it doesn't not shock with the timeline of your story, if it doesn't have a shock or doesn't interfere, because again, it may slow down the pace of your story, of the plot, and that may not be necessary. And now, yes, let's see the good reasons for including a flashback. So, what are the benefits of writing a flashback exactly? You might ask or might think. Well, it can be an effective tool for building suspense or presenting the reader with a mystery. For example, The Bullet That Missed opens with a scene where some woman with Bethany has a gun. Knows she might die today and sends a cryptic text. So as you can see, it's a mystery. We don't know what it is, but if you will think about it, the scene is a woman with Bethany, this is the main character, has a gun. She knows she will die. And then a cryptic text just happens there. And that's the opening. And I think that's amazing. Because you might ask, is she going to die? What is written in the cryptic message of the text? And the one with the gun, is she going to kill Bethany? Or she's going to escape? We don't know. But that's the suspense of that part of the flashback. It keeps you intrigued. You are already questioning questions. And that could be of the reasons. And then, suddenly, and other ways as well, we are in the current time where Bethany has been dead for a decade. And the book, of course, you may be familiar with this, is Thursday Murder Club, what is trying to figure out what happened. Because we readers experience the flashback for ourselves. It feels like we are coming to the story already equipped with clues. We are part of the investigation, which is exactly how a mystery writer wants us to feel. Yes, this makes sense to me because we got these clues. We're going to follow them. We're going to follow the character and what's going to happen. But in the same time, we are participating. You're already inside of the story. If you really think about this, doesn't need to be a mystery, a story's mystery, but this is an example of the flashback. You can use a flashback to do this. You plot a mystery, the reader follows it, they try to investigate what's going on, and then of course, with pacing, with character development, etc., reader goes, aha! Oh, this is awesome. And I imagine for the people who read this book, it was like that. They feel, yeah, this feels great. This is interesting. Again, you don't need to do this on your mystery novel. It can be for any genre. Just keep in mind, you can use the flashback to be suspense and also present the reader with a mystery. That's what you can use. Because on the flip side, a flashback can offer meaningful clarity. It's another way to make as well a good flashback. For example, a man called Ove repeatedly flashes back to scenes from Ove's courtship and marriage. The more the reader understands the bond he shared with his wife, the easier it is to forgive him for raging at the world after her death. Because yes, again, this is an emotional scene. The character is constantly reminding him, keep in mind, a wife is dead. I will say this character is trying to cope with loss and grief. And this is his way to cope. Because nobody told him how to cope properly. So we are already with the character. Imagine when you are reading a book, imagine that you are side by side with the character and are telling the story. And imagine telling, oh, you remember this happened, but I remember back in the days, It's flashback. Back in the days, in my other times, this is all like flashbacks. And in the context of this book, again, a man called Hove, I think so you pronounce his name, Flashbacks can do this to make you immerseful in information that makes sense. It's clear to you. And also, another example to illustrate this next flashback benefit as well. Why? Because it shows the readers who a character used to be. This is what the flashback was. It has a good flashback. Who was the protagonist before their life-changing trauma? Because if you think about it, what the flashback does, at least in general as we know, it tells us this character, let's imagine, I don't know, used to be, let's say, a sailor. They used to be like the ocean. They used to travel to go out there and see the ocean, and we like to smell the water, the salty, from the water and the hair as well. But then suddenly, this same sailor no longer enjoys the ocean. He doesn't want to be near the ocean. Something must happen. Because usually, the flashbacks help us to understand who these characters used to be before something happened. For example, and this also is connected, if you think about it, this is connected with the thing we talked about many weeks ago, even months now. It's connected with the characteristic of the character. Because when you use a flashback to dig into the backstory of a side character who will not otherwise get the protagonist treatment, they will not. In this, can be a tragedy for helping readers sympathize with the antagonists. And now that you've established the good and the not good of the storytelling device, we can see how to write a flashback. Because I can say, yep, we have to do this, you have to do that, but how do you do this? So for that, let's listen to our second, let's say, rock metal band for this week. It's American, and it's called Edge of Paradise. The song is The Other Side of Fear. Their song, it's rocky, heavy, industrial, and symphonic as well. So guys, and they were formed in 2011. So guys, enjoy Edge of the Paradise, The Other Side, Fear.
Create, destroy, lose what is not yours. Create, destroy, lose what is not yours.
that was Edge of Paradise, The Other Side of Fear. I really hope you guys enjoy the song. And now, yes, returning, let's just recap a little bit. So, what are the good reasons for including a flashback? Basically, build suspense or presenting the reader with a mystery, could be one of the other ways. Offer meaningful clarity, which means when you see what's happening with the character, you understand their struggle, you understand why this flashback is so important to the character and what makes you feel as well. And also flashback benefits, because it can make us readers understand who the character used to be before something happened to them. And I will say it, keep in mind, the flashback doesn't necessarily need to be something dramatic. It can just be a good fun. It could be, for example, a moment when the character is just understanding how much they've changed, how much they grow. And when they turn back in time, they see, yeah, I used to do this, but now I don't for this reason. And that's okay as well. Not necessarily need to be tragic. But remember, a good flashback has to offer this to make sense. And now let's see how to write the flashback, because it's all good and fun, but I'm pretty sure at this point, with all of these positives and negatives you can have aside, but let's see exactly how, because it's fun to say don't do this, don't do that, but then if somebody doesn't know what to do, and it's also a little bit, bless the writer because they're trying their best, yes. So time in carefully. Now that you know why you are writing a flashback, ask yourself where to place it in your story to best accomplish your goal. Consider 3 things. So consider tension. If you are interrupting a scene designed to build suspense, make sure the flashback adds to the tension. Hold off, or put the flashback in a less suspenseful scene. Because, it doesn't matter. And then it's just how to place it. It doesn't matter. The pacing. You see all these connected? Tension, pacing. Flashbacks often slow the pace of a story. Isn't necessarily a bad thing, again, but it's definitely something to keep in mind when you are doing it, if it's going to slow the pace or not. Because I'm going to say it again, a flashback slows the pace of your story. It is important, it's up to you to decide as a writer and see if it works. And lastly is insight. When will the information the flashback reveals the most impactful for the reader? How does the flashback enhance what's going on in the current timeline? Because yes, remember to offer clarity when you write it, as to do that. So in a way, time it carefully, with tension, if necessary, careful with the pacing, and careful if it offers clarity to the reader. Another way as well is transition gracefully. Yes, transition, it can be sometimes tricky, and I will say with all of this, how to do a good flashback, it comes with practice. You have to practice, you have to read how the other writers do as well, for you to have an idea how to then transition, because transition even transition of the scenes or transition of something's happening in the story is always very important and can affect your flashback as well. Because the transition is everything. If your transitions into and out of the flashback aren't good, your readers will realize they are in a flashback. Confusion and chaos will follow. And because of that, usually when you're writing a flashback, you write it in italics when you're writing a flashback. What's telling the reader is, oh, this is an important moment. This character is going to remember. Not this more in a more practical way, of course, I'm telling you. But yes, the flashback is a transition because we're going back in time. We're going to remember the past. Or it could be a past weeks. It also could be. But it's always in the past that things happen. Remember this. And now we have things to connected to how to create a flashback. They are names I researched online to see how this could actually be done. And let me see the time. Yes, okay. So I can speak of this one. It's called Create a Door, basically. So what is a create a door? This is in terms of a transition. Remember this in transition. Create a door. So basically is when you create some kind of magical door, of course, metaphorically, that allows the character to see into the past. The line between flashback and time travel gets a little blurry here. For our purposes, we are going to talk about things where the character can observe the past but not participate in it. So this means that the character is mostly an expectant. They just watch what's going to happen. They cannot interfere. If you think about it, the magical door include on Harry Potter, looking in the pensive or the ghost of Christmas past showing Ebenezer, Scourge. This is regrettable choices. So yes, sometimes, at least on this transition, is more about for the character to see what I have done, what I regret, whether was there any good decision when this happened. Is it any meaningful? What they are thinking right now? They feel ashamed. They feel it was a waste of time in their lives. Who knows? But the thing is, to create a door, in a sense, door, is to put the character to see, watch what they have done, or watch that happen, so they can see and reflect that in the present time. Remember, the transition is strategic. It has to be straightforward. Your character sticks their head in a ball of follows the ghost, and the ghost, as we see in Waverly Pass, is their struggle, is their most intense moment when something happened. Something which is the false need as well. Or looks into a mirror or whatever. They see what they need to see and live the same way they came in. So, yes, this can happen. They may see something that for them it just happened, but then they can live the same because they have changed. Remember, your character have changed. They just are remembering stuff. But this is a good way to transition. Another way is to trigger a memory. And I think this is going to be the most, probably the most common. Trigger memory is like in the moment, right? Sounds like in the moment. So this is like a signal to your reader. The narrative is shifting into the past by showing that your character is remembering something. Again, if you only need 2-3 sentences to tell the reader everything they need to know about this memory. It's not really a flashback. Just say what you need to say and move on. So this is like a very straightforward thing. Like it says here in my notes, it just needs to be 3 sentences. Because it's just a trigger memory. It's like something that happened and it's going to trigger your character. It's not like the other one that they see, they reflect. It's just 3, that's it. It's straightforward. But if this is going to take a few paragraphs, clarity is key. Phrases like, for example, she thought about or he remembered can help. So can using past perfect sentence when you are easing into the flashback. It has been a hot summer or it was a hot summer. So think about the trigger memory like something is very short, but if it is qualification, she thought, or you remember, just to clarify what's really happening. Because remember, you don't want to leave your readers confused. And for this week, we are going to wrap up here. And my third and last band for this week is going to be a gothic band called Lord of the Lost. And the music is called One Last Song. This is a Germanic gothic metal band formed in 2007. Their sound is melodic, sad, and also introspective, especially this song. And I say this because the song talks about what will be the last song you sing for someone that you care about. And I will leave here for today. Thank you so much for those who are listening. And see you next week. And have a wonderful, wonderful day today with the sun.
If I could sing one last song before the world ends, if I could sing one last song to say goodbye, if I could sing one last song to all my children, if I could sing one last song before we die. The forgiveness for this life ends. I'd give everything I have, say all the things I left unsaid, if I could sing one last song and make it a good one. A song about love, a song about death, with desperation in my breath. I scream in the silence, massive and violent, hear my voice for Ryan Laws, singing for my broken walls. One last song, one last song. If I could sing one last song to show my love was endless, if I could sing one last song to help you cry, if I could sing one last song when the colors fade, with a smile through the pain to the everlasting night. A song about love, a song about death, with desperation in my breath. I scream in the silence, massive and violent, hear my voice for Ryan Laws, singing for my broken walls. One last song, one last song, for the rebels and the brave, the runaways, the renegades, for those living by the sword, the forgotten and ignored, for the victims standing proud, all the lonesome in the crowd, for all my kings and all my queens, and for everyone between. A song about love, a song about death, with desperation in my breath. I scream in the silence, massive and violent, hear my voice for Ryan Laws, singing for my broken walls.